So we
Recording
got
is
that.
live. We're recording, we're live.
There we
We're
are.
recording.
And let me see if I can
Let's
live
behave
stream
ourselves. I won't tell you how I'm going to behave. I'm just going to behave.
live on Facebook.
Judi, I love your authenticity, so I appreciate that. I love it. Just be your authentic self. That's all you got to do.
Like, I'm like authentic, borderlining on unhinged.
It's okay. It's still authentic.
It's a knife's edge. Am I authentic or am I
Yeah.
unhinged? We're going to find out.
All right. Share to your page.
Okay. You have the right page.
I've got it. I take my time with this because
Okay. Okie dokie.
go live.
Are we on Facebook land?
And we're on Facebook land.
We're on
All
Facebook
right.
land. Hi, Facebook land.
Yeah.
Oh, now on Facebook. Welcome to
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Laugh Lines and Turbulence. And that says that it is unsupported. Of course it is, but I'm going to go into our thing. Nope. And it's showing that we're live. So it does that periodically. I don't know what the heck,
Okay.
but
All
we're
right.
good. We're live.
Yay!
happening.
Yeah. Welcome everybody. We're so excited to have you all here. We have the lovely Judi Harrington with us today, and we're so excited to hear from her. I'm gonna really quick read her bio if I can find it now. What the heck? All right, hang on a second. I have all of this like
I got it
together.
too.
This is us being our
Oh, do you have it? Do you want to read it,
I just
Deb?
have her bio. Sure. Okay.
All
I
right,
got
I'll let
Judy
you do it.
bio.
You do
Let
it.
me see here. I have a short, let's do the short bio. Judi Harrington. Give me one moment, guys. I do have it in front of me. I have the last lines in privilege drop form. Is that good enough, or you want me to pull up that bio?
It should the bio should be right at the bottom there.
Short bio. Okay.
Got it?
All right, Judi Harrington. Thank you for joining us here on Last Lines Turbulence today. We're so happy that you're here. Judi Harrington is a storytelling expert who helps business owners turn their ideas into powerful stories that speak to the world. She's written for national brands such as Cross Country Mortgage, eChewy.com, international brands such as Expert AI, and attorneys, financial planners, insurance experts, and money managers throughout North America. She is also the author of Fuckery, The Life and Times of a Legend. Love it. In her own mind, and works with authors devoted to self-publishing their work. And Judi, welcome to our show. We're so happy to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for including me in the conversation. Exciting. Exciting.
So welcome. So
Anyway.
I don't know where we want to start here. I think we want to start.
Trying to think about how did we come into each other's lives, Gina? I can't remember who introduced us. I feel like you and I've always known each other.
Oh,
yeah,
amazing.
Because we're like soul humor sisters. Debbie Keevan
like
introduced us as fellow humor authors. Mm-hmm.
I can't remember
who
introduced us, but we're gonna have to go dig deep and find who that person is so we can thank them at a later time. But
Debbie Keevan from Highlander Press.
There it is. There it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That is exactly who it is.
Yeah.
Came to that writing group, the
Find Me the Funny Ink.
Yes. But then the Irma Bomba people.
Oh yeah.
The
Germinators.
The Germinators. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
It's Germinators. And then I spoke at Germinators, and then Gina and I have been thick as thieves ever since.
Yes. Absolutely.
Sure.
But I love your story. Like Laugh Lines and Turbulence is all about jumping into, our 50s with gusto.
Right.
Yeah, feet first, head first, full body experience.
Whatever. I think we get thrown in, but we figure it out. And you certainly have such a story of how you figured it out.
Figure it all out. Yeah. So, well, I mean, Fuckery, the book itself, is a memoir, a humorous memoir and essays that showcases my family and our motto, put the fun in dysfunctional. And really is like our family motto. And I mean, the highlight reel is it started because my older daughter, um, when she was 5, she wanted Santa to bring her a menorah for Christmas. And we're Irish Catholic, and I mean like super Irish Catholic. Like her dad is an Irish immigrant. Our moms are like Catholic Mother Hall of Famers. Like this was like, what do you mean? But I was like, but my father was also a Baptist. So I grew up in a two religion household. So I was already like kind of conditioned to be like a little open-minded about this. I was like, oh yes, of course, you know, sure, and then it kind of turned into this whole thing. Like I thought it was like a singular event, and then it became like the hallmark of our family, like that she became our Jewish kid. And so I wrote that story down, and then her sister, not to be outshined, um, she created a family of imaginary friends and family that would rival a Jerry Springer episode and a Mexican soap opera all roped into one. And then they would so when I was started writing these stories about them, I wanted them to remember that I wanted to remember them, right? Like when you're a parent, it's like write those things down, write that down, don't forget that, don't forget that. And then it kind of like triggered like how I grew up, and this was more stories about my mom dressed like the Cat in the Hat. My dad called talk radio in defense of the Red Sox. Like I'm a masshole, right? I was born in Massachusetts. I've lived here my whole life. I've tried to correct that accent, but sometimes it really comes out. But like Yankees suck, like we're those people, right? And really we are. And so like I put I had written all these stories over the years, and they were kind of like sitting in a drawer or whatever. And then in my 50s, the pivotal moment for me was what I like to call the country song era, where my life was like a country song, except a country
Mm,
ends. My marriage fell apart. I was estranged from my kids. My mom entered dementia. My best friend got cancer. My dog died. Like, what in the name of the Lord could happen next?
Yeah.
And so here we are, it's the
mm,
pandemic. I've split from my husband. I've made the incredibly difficult choice to leave my children behind with him and live separately. And so I'm living in isolation in a time of worldwide isolation. And I say, well, now's a perfect time to write this book. I mean, I got nowhere else to go.
mm.
What else am I going to
Yeah.
do? I I can't go to the store without it being almost a crime. So I might as well just stay
Right.
home, order DoorDash and Instacart and work on this book.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a whole story behind the story of how I came in touch with my self-publishing partners, but suffice to say, this was that's kind of like how the book came to be. And what was great about it is that it was such catharsis for me. Like I was able to like really sit back and say, okay, this 20 plus year marriage was not a waste of time. Like there were lots of great things that happened, even though we are now living in this really terrible chapter of our relationship as a family.
Mm.
There isn't, it was not for naught. So for me, it was incredibly cathartic. And I also say it's a reason that I'm not in jail. Like I didn't like like I can still be in the same room with my ex-husband and not want to throttle him. Like I've just kind of learned that he gave me a lot of great things. He gave me an extended family.
Yeah.
I have family in Ireland that I'm still
Mhm.
close with and in touch with, and all of that. So like in the grand scheme of things, like something really terrible happened, but I chose to take that and channel it into something good, and take
Yeah.
something that I had been building all along, and then create a book out of it. And now, and my book is forever. So to me, that was the beauty of it. And to me, it was like I took this shitty situation and
Mhm.
spun it into something better. Yeah. So that's
I
the story.
love that, Judi. I love that you've done that and to be able to really take a step back, because that's a lot about, you know, what my book's about is taking a step back from those crappy things that happen and being able to put that positivity or that positive spin into it. And it wasn't all bad, right?
It
So,
wasn't bad.
um,
He's not a
love
bad
that.
guy. I just don't want to be his wife anymore. Right. And
Yeah.
I say all the time, it's like, he's a great guy. He's a great person. He's just a crappy husband. And he probably thinks I'm a great gal, but not a great wife. So at least we can agree on something. It's just, you know, and we're generally pretty civil with each other now. But there was a period where I was like, I don't know how I can ever look at this man in the face again. But you move through it. You know, I was not blameless then either. I wasn't. You know, and actually that's the topic of the next book, which we could probably be able to squeeze that conversation in here, but maybe
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's, I mean, if there's something that happened in my life, it happened right after I turned 51. I was like, I turned 51 in April. We split up in August of 20. So, I mean, it was pretty fresh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You had a story before, Judi, about the title of your book, how you got pushback from people on that, and how you made that determination that this is your book.
Yeah. There were a
How
couple
did
that got pushback on. Yeah.
Yeah.
The title, people were like, people literally would say to me, can you do that? And I'm like, well, I have 4 and 2 legs. I can do whatever the fuck I want. But also that is the freedom of self-publishing, right? So like to get on my soapbox for just a moment, and I know you've self-published as well, Gina, is that
Yeah, I did hybrid.
you did a hybrid, but my thing is we didn't do traditional. We didn't go around asking permission for our message. We didn't go pitch a bunch of literary agents, then would then, you know, take us on and then pitch on our behalf. And then have to negotiate terms with a big publishing house who was going to absorb our intellectual property and give us a pittance. You know, like we took we had agency in it. We chose to say, this is our message, this is how we're going to say it on these terms. And I worked with a publishing company called Get It Done Productions. And it was, you know, very much they were really the production company of the book. Like all the, obviously it's an investment. I worked with them and invested with them. I had an editor. They did the copy editing, the book design, the marketing, you know, getting things up on Amazon, all those things that I couldn't do by virtue of like having no mental capacity or like no, that was not a mental load I could take on.
Yeah.
And that was really where, for me, like, I'm like, I have this book, but I don't know how to do all those other things. And I don't want to have to go find an editor and then go find a book. So it was like all one package. So to me, it was great. But there were so many people like, are you really going to say title fuckery? I'm like, why are you whispering? Like, I don't understand. I'm like, yes, I'm going to say fuckery because it's fuckery. I mean, to me, it's like, it's just this insanity, this nonsense, this kind of like something you can't describe, but you know it when you see it, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I also got a little bit of pushback from my kids. So in the book in Fuckery, my kids are identified as Ruth and Zoe. And for reasons that are theirs very personally, and not my story to tell, they have each chosen to change their names to Ruben and Ivy. And so, but when I submitted the book, I was not in contact with them. We were still estranged. And they were like in the process of doing these name changes, and I kind of knew it. I did know that this was going on, but I was like, this is my book. And these stories happened when they identified as Ruth and Zoe. And again, this is my book. And but eventually when my older one came back to me, I told her, I wrote this book. P.S. You're in it. There's nothing in this book that there's no story in here that you haven't heard me talk about the kitchen table. This is not like a a tell-all
Hello.
kind of thing. It's
Right.
not that. That's not what this is. And
Mhm.
she was really happy about it. My younger one took a little bit of umbrage that she wasn't identified as Ivy all along. And I said, well, I understand that. At the time, your name was Zoe, and I chose to keep that because I want to have that memory. That was the name I
Mhm.
gave you. You can call yourself Godzilla. I mean, how you identify is how you identify. That's not
Right.
for me to determine. Like, that's for you to live with. But at the same time, it's like those stories happened at a place and time where your name was Zoe. And the time I wrote the book was a time that you didn't want to be in touch with me. I couldn't negotiate this with you.
Mhm.
So I got that pushback, and I'm not going to say she was like, okay, that's fine. It was like, I stood
Mhm.
I stood my integrity around it.
Mhm.
Mm.
I love how you said that you stuck with your intuition. You didn't listen to anyone's opinions. You stuck to your guns because that was so important to you, and you shouldn't have to uh satisfy everybody else. You know what I'm saying? You shouldn't have to please anybody else.
But it's interesting that you say that, Debbie,
Yeah.
because so much of everything up to that point, I gave so much. I mean,
Yes.
as
Yep.
this is what we do. We give,
Yes. Yes.
we give. What's the, I
Mhm.
say this in my book too, there's a great line from The Bridges of Madison County, when Mary
Mhm.
Poppins says, we stand still so our children can move.
Yes. Yes.
Isn't
You're,
that just the essence of what
yep.
it is to be a mother? And I'm not saying that because I'm
Yes.
asking for a parade or I want to be a martyr. That
Right. Right.
is just that's what happens. And
Mhm.
I got to a place where I was like, okay, this divorce was heartbreaking. And it was also the greatest gift of my life because I was able
Yeah.
to then return to myself.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
Judi Harrington is someone, because I reclaimed my birth name. I was Judy McLaughlin when I was, and I reclaimed my birth name, and I said, I'm going to be who I am and pretty much fuck everybody.
Yeah.
Like this,
Judy.
but it wasn't even like this, fuck them. It was just like, this is what I'm doing. I'm going
Yeah.
to be very like in my integrity about it.
Yeah. What would you give women our age? You know, I'm 55, and this is why Gina and I started this podcast, is for women that are entering this stage of their life to, it's very hard to transition from what you just said, being the mom, the wife, taking care of everything, and to transition into being who you want to be, who you're supposed to be you, and without the guilt and without the, because there's some guilt still in that, you know. I mean, there's some guilt in being your true self and coming out at that age.
It's so true. It's so true. So this became like a practice for me. Like I remember, like, is there anything more motherly than having to manage dinner? Like, let's think about that for a moment.
Yeah.
Right.
All
Like,
my baked potatoes are sitting on the stove
like,
right now. I agree.
every day you're like, this shit again, right?
Right.
And, you know, baseline, here we go again.
Hmm. Yeah.
So managed dinner for my older daughter has celiac disease. So
Mhm.
I managed that within the construct of dinner. And then as my kids got older, they were like, oh, yeah, so I'm a vegetarian, I'm a pescatarian, I'm a pastatarian, I'm a this, I'm a that. I'm like, cook your own shit. I'm done. Right?
Mhm.
Which of course
Mhm.
puts you in the role of the bitch who stole Christmas, right? But there's that. So like the whole dinner thing, but that is what the practice I had to create when I moved out by myself is like I had to sit down every night and say, what do you want to eat?
Mhm.
What do you want to do? Like I had to get
Yes.
quiet with myself and say, I just want crackers with butter, and that's okay. Or
Yeah.
I want to make like a big fancy meal, and that's also okay.
Right.
But the guilt of like being selfish in that way
Mhm.
is palpable. But I think to answer your question is that you get to a point where you really have to start getting quiet with yourself and trying to remind
Mhm.
yourself,
Yeah.
what do I actually want?
Yes. Yes.
Right? If I want to eat 4 grilled cheese sandwiches, then
Mhm.
clearly I have food issues. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, but like whatever it is, like what do I want to do this weekend? Do
Mhm.
I want to actually go to the movies? Or do I want to sit at home and read a book?
Mhm.
We're being at a cookout
Mhm.
one Saturday afternoon, and I'm like, I don't even want to be at this cookout. And I just sat there. I'm like, what do you want? I thought to myself, what do I want to do? And I kind of got quiet with myself. I'm like, what do I want to do? I'm like, I want to go to the movies. And
Mhm.
and I'm the queen of the Irish goodbye. Like you just get up and leave. You don't say anything to anybody. Like you just like
Yeah.
absolutely exit. And I went, I went to the movies, and I think I saw where the Crawdads sing when that movie had just come
Oh,
out.
yeah,
I wanted
Mhm.
to see it,
yeah.
and um, I'm like, I remember I got up, I walked out, got in my car, I drove to this movie theater, I got a
Mhm.
ticket. It was like an old movie theater. It wasn't one of the
Mhm.
like those AMC things where, you know,
Mhm.
it's like sitting in like a giant, recliner. It was like a very
Mhm.
Account.
yeah, like the chair that absorbs you and you think, will I actually ever get out of this? But I did that. And it's just I think that's the thing is that you have to start getting quiet with yourself and trying to remember what it is that
Yes.
you like in life because you've abdicated so much of that in the active
Yep.
motherhood.
That's true. Yeah. I say that all the time. What a sense of freedom to be able to spend time with yourself, to like enjoy your own company.
And what's interesting too is that
Yeah.
up until we split up, I was very open with the idea that if someone was your worst nightmare, I was living alone.
Yeah.
I grew up, I went from living with the family I was born into to going to
Mhm.
college and having roommates.
Yeah.
And then I had, I went from roommates to having a boyfriend who turned into my husband. Then I
Mhm.
had children with him. So now here we are. When I was 51 years old, was the
Mhm.
first time I had truly lived alone ever in my life.
Mhm.
I had when I met my husband, I was living in a studio apartment, but we were in that stage where I was staying at his house, he was staying at my
Yeah.
I was never truly alone. I never truly lived alone. Now I truly
Mhm.
live alone.
Yeah.
And
I
having to get used to that, to
It
being
is
okay with being
yeah,
with you.
it's a task to get used to that. You have to like, what do I actually like? What do I actually
Mhm.
want? You know, like
Yes.
take me a long time to like curate the things around my house and decorate my
Yeah.
home the way that feels good to me.
Mhm.
But it's this whole practice of sitting with yourself and saying, what do I want to eat? What do I want to do?
Yeah.
Where I want to go? How do I want to work? Like, but like
Yeah.
really not what do other it's not what other people think, not what I should be doing, not because of my
Yes.
ex. Like it could be as simple as, do I actually want to continue to color my hair? Right? Or
Mhm.
I tell everybody,
There, right now.
listen,
Mhm.
I drop dead tomorrow, make sure my roots are covered. I don't want my ghost body to have gray hair. Like, don't
My ghost
I
body.
say it all the time. But
Yeah.
it's like just getting quiet with yourself and
Yeah.
really
Self-discovery.
you remember who you were.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Self-discovery. Yeah.
And it's such
Amazing.
a task.
Mm.
Like I would never try and pretend that it's like, oh yeah, if you just get quiet with yourself. I'm like, no, it's a practice. You have to remember all the time. There are times I'm like, oh, you know what? I actually didn't want to go to dinner with all those people. And then now I'm just like, you know what? The person I was when I said yes to this 3 weeks ago is different than the person I am today. So I can't come. And
He's not here.
which is very funny because prior to the pandemic, you've heard me say this, Gina, that I would have RSVP'd yes to the opening of an envelope. Like I would have gone anywhere. It doesn't matter. Like you
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, I'll be there. I was the I'm the yes gal.
Mhm.
And then in the pandemic, I mean, by nature of the pandemic itself, but then
Mhm.
also then being isolated and then extracted from my family and separated
Mhm.
from my family, I had to like really learn how to be by myself.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's an extraordinary act.
Mhm.
And it's, it's a skill. Like if you've never done that before, it's learning that.
It
It
is,
is.
that's actually it is a skill. It is a skill to learn to be alone.
Mhm.
And I came to a place where I was like, oh, now I get why you people who are saying that you've been training your whole life for this. Like my older daughter is
Mhm.
very naturally introverted. And in the
Mhm.
beginning of the pandemic, she said, I've been training my whole life for this. I can't wait to be home by myself. This is great. I don't have to go out and go to school and see with people. That's great. And I could not understand it. I was like, let's go out, let's go here, let's go there. And I also realized later that I did that largely as a defense mechanism because
Mhm.
home, life at home was not great. So it was a
Yeah.
form of escape. And then
Yeah.
being out there and, that I often call myself a recovering extrovert. I would be out there like, oh yeah, everything's great, because I didn't want anybody to think anything was wrong.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Right. So it's like it becomes this interesting defense mechanism so that
Mhm.
no one thinks there's anything going on. And when I eventually started to like come out of the closet, if you will, to people
Mhm.
that my husband and I split up, people were like, oh my God, I had no idea. I thought you guys were so happy. And I was like, yeah, we put on a good show. Like, I really, I mean, the Oscar goes to,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something a lot of people who are watching and listening can relate to that.
Yeah.
Sometimes we put on a mask, we don't even know we put it on.
Mhm. Yep.
Well, and you get
Yeah.
so used to it. Yeah. How many years were you married again, Judy?
Pardon?
How many years were you married again?
22 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you're putting that mask on every single day, it's habit.
Mm.
It says to
Yeah.
habit.
Mm-hmm.
But I often
Yeah.
say, Stockholm syndrome begins at home.
Mm.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You start to sympathize with the characters around you and the dysfunction around
Yeah.
you, and you just accept it as normal and you think it's a, and I
Yeah.
also grew up in a family where I didn't have great role models for a healthy relationship. I didn't. My parents did the best they could with what they had, but
Yeah.
they were not great role models,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
that's an acknowledgement of fact. That is not a
Yeah.
criticism of them.
Yeah.
That's an acknowledgement of who they were.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we don't realize that. I mean, growing up, I mean, my parents weren't great role models either. But I, over the after I turned 50, I had a lot of self-reflection, and then when I did self-reflection, all those questions were answered. I'm like, oh, no wonder I'm a people pleaser. Oh, no wonder. Yes, no, yeah. It's
And
like
that's
so. Yeah. So
yeah.
you kind of like realize all that and like, oh my goodness, when you wait, and then you sit and you listen to yourself too, and you're like, those questions kind of get answered stuff, but you don't know that you are the way you are until
You just,
later.
it's like, um, I was even talking with my therapist about this. I'm like, why is it that I feel so compelled to like answer the phone when someone calls me, even if I don't want to talk to that person in that moment? Why do I feel so obligated
Yeah.
to answer the phone and say to that person, either indulge their conversation when I have no time, energy, inclination,
Mhm.
insert whatever here, or why can't I just like not answer or say that, hey, I'm acknowledging this call. I can't talk right now. I'll talk with you later. But more importantly, like, why do I have to answer it at all? Why do I feel called to answer it at all? Like, why do I feel like I owe my response? Why do I let people own my response?
Mhm.
Right? And
Yeah.
that's the latest thing I've become very curious about. I think you just
Yeah.
become curious about who you are and how you've behaved and what informs it. Well, not, I
Mhm.
mean, the informing piece of it, that's, eh, you know, but it's more, to me, it's more important, like, yeah, it's important to maybe know why you do that, but I think it's actually more important to figure out how to undo it,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Really, when you put your phone on do not disturb, like really don't go out, look and see who called. Like, it's
Mhm.
just like, why do I do that? Right. And I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
just like, that's my thing, that's my baggage,
Mhm.
but there's something about your 50s that makes you so curious about those habitual behaviors.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You either become, I think, aware of those habitual behaviors, or you just still keep running that program. You keep
Mm-hmm.
running that program until you're like one day get frustrated because you're like, I'm always answering their calls, or I'm this, and then until one day you're mad because you haven't set any boundaries, or you haven't, placed them on yourself.
It is just so crazy because at the end up, if you allow it to go on and then you get to the boiling point and then you blow up, then it becomes about your response,
Yes,
not about the issue,
Been there.
right. You're the bad
Been
guy.
there.
right?
Right.
Yeah,
And just call it as it is
yeah.
very often the precipitator is not packing up top, right? So like it's usually males, right? It's usually men who are
Mhm,
like, well, can't you do this for me? Can't you do that? Whether it's your boss or
mhm,
your brother or your
mhm,
ex-husband or your cut, like whatever it is. Like I think it's disproportionately male. That's all I'll say.
mhm.
I mean, that's just
Mhm.
the residual of the week, but I'm just gonna, I said what I said. As a kid say today. But like you get to this point where it becomes then it gets focused on your reaction, not
Mhm.
stated it, and then you're left holding the bag of oh, she's so bitchy, or she's so emotional,
Mm,
or what's her problem, and
Yeah.
why do you got to get so
mhm,
mad, and all those things. And yes, you participated in that.
mhm. Yes, sure, 100%.
It's this infinity loop. The how do you,
Mhm. Yeah.
it becomes
Yeah.
a slice through it, you know? And that's when the
Yeah.
curiosity is what helps kind
Yeah.
of, you know, slice through it.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
I think setting those boundaries is so important and learning how to
Mhm.
do that. That's something I've had to learn to do because I'm always, yes, okay, I
Mhm.
gotta do this. And, someone comes at me with something and I'm, doing it. But I'm still a work in progress. I'm still learning. Every
Mhm.
so every so often I go back, I revert back to not
Mhm.
setting the boundary.
yeah,
And then, like you ladies said, then you get mad, because you're like,
Yeah.
I'm doing all this stuff. And it's like, it's because you didn't set your own boundary for like,
Mhm.
right.
and communicate that. So,
Mhm. One of the things I realized too is what's helped for me, like at this point of life, is setting boundaries, is keeping my answers simple. Yes, no, okay, and that's it. And no over explaining. I don't need to over explain anymore. It's
Mhm.
so exhausting.
Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
Just yes, no, just simple. Yes, no, okay.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and I think too, the other thing I've become curious about and really tried to tackle, I guess, is women feel the need to explain, right? It just as much as I just called out men, I'm going to call out us.
Yes,
Mhm.
We feel the
100%.
need to explain,
Yep.
right? So,
Hmm.
well, I'm sorry I can't come to dinner tonight because like I've had a rough week, or
Yeah.
it's just been, so I'm sorry I have to cancel.
Yep.
And then to your point, Debbie, it's like less is more
Yes. Yeah.
to cancel,
Yeah.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
I'm not saying like I have a friend who had to cancel plans. She's not well. She's managing some health issues, and she was like, I have to cancel plans because XYZ. And I'm like, you don't owe me an explanation. It's totally fine, right?
Yeah.
But amongst friends, of course, right? Like I think that's just, but for every single like I can't do that. The answer is no.
Mhm. Yeah.
Why can't we say, like, it's just so funny because today I have a sign on my front door that says no solicitations unless you are bringing me a bottle of wine or here to fold my laundry. It's on my front door. And twice last week, someone has knocked on my door. And I have a doorbell, but it's kind of in a weird spot. But so people knocking on the door, and it's like really like frenetic, right? So, and both times I went to the door, and I live in a two-family home. I have an upstairs neighbor, and I thought, well, maybe it's her. Like both times, I'm like, it's something about it that felt like maybe,
Mhm.
maybe, whatever. Both times, it was a man trying to like convince me of something. One of them was um a realtor who wanted to know if I was wanting to sell my house. And the other one was a Verizon representative.
Mm.
So with the realtor, I opened the door and he was like, are you the owner of the house? And I was like, who needs to know? And he was like, well, I'm asking. And I'm like, and I don't think I need to give you that information.
Good for you.
And he was like, well, I'm like, sign, this sign that says no solicitations is real.
Yeah.
It's real.
Yeah.
And he was like, thank you. Have a nice day. And I go, same this afternoon. Get to the door. There's a guy, and he's like, I know you have a sign that says that, but I'm like, not today. Not, I was like Arya in Game of Thrones, not today, right? Today, Satan. But maybe even 3 weeks ago, 6 months ago, I would have been like, oh, right, yeah, so no, I'm happy with Comcast, or no, I don't, whatever. I would have given like a big doctoral dissertation or why and justified it. No, that sign is real.
Right.
Please leave. But what if I
Yeah.
told you no? I literally said, I don't care if you
What
told
if
me.
I had wine?
He's like, but
Yeah.
what? I said, listen, you could tell me that Jesus is coming. We got to make it a lasagna. I'm not doing it. Goodbye.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and Jesus is coming. Can he bring his own bread? Like, come on. Like he made the fish and loaves thing. Doesn't need to make a lasagna. So like, enough already. But
Mm-hmm.
things like that, that's the thing. I think as you get older, and particularly in your 50s, you start to get to this point like, I don't know anyone an explanation for what I'm doing.
No, that's right.
You don't.
Right.
You really
Mhm.
don't. Like, stop explaining
Mhm.
yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've been so programmed to be the nice, girls are nice.
all about girls are not
Mm,
polite.
We've been programmed and
yeah.
from a
Yeah.
very young age.
Yeah, but I remember, I think it was Glenn,
Okay.
was like, the most radical act a woman can commit is not to explain herself. And I'm like,
Mm.
amen, sister friend, because I am so done explaining.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
agree.
those are the two key things I would say to women at this stage of life. Like, get quiet with yourself and figure what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Explain yourself when you decide.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
even younger women who tune in,
Women,
it's a good
Yeah.
practice to start right now.
yeah,
Start it right now. Don't
And the
wait until you're.
apologies.
particularly.
I, oh yeah, and the apologies. I've worked with this one girl who always said, "I'm sorry." Like, I'm like, oh, the copier's out of paper. I'm sorry. I almost want to say, please stop saying sorry. Stop
You
saying
don't need
sorry.
to
You
taking
don't
it.
need to apologize. Stop. Yeah,
Yeah.
the whole the apologizing for everything.
Yeah, it's so interesting though how
Yeah.
the apology thing is so prevalent.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the other thing too is, like, as I go on my way, and then one more thing, and then this, and
And
then
then.
oh, my Massachusetts is coming out big time, but
uh-huh.
is when it comes to apologies, right? Like, there's nothing better than the art of a great apology. Like, I'm sorry, I hurt you, it won't happen again. But here's what's more important. I've taught my kids this, that when someone apologizes to you, don't say it's okay, because it wasn't ever okay.
Mm-hmm.
Say,
Yeah.
"Thank you for your
Thanks.
apology. Thank you for your apology.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your apology." And the apology, the I'm sorry, is the acknowledgement of wrongdoing. The true
Mm-hmm.
apology is changed behavior,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
It's like, so if someone says, I'm sorry, I hurt your feelings by talking about the thing you don't want to talk about,
Mm-hmm.
the true apology is not bringing up the topic you don't want to talk about anymore. Instead of saying,
Correct.
well, I know you don't want to talk about, your divorce, or like
Mm-hmm.
whatever topic you don't want to talk about, doesn't matter. Like for me, it's like, I don't want to talk about my divorce with people. Like people, how's it going? I'm like, it's moving along. And they're like, but what do you mean? I'm like, that's it. That's the answer. Take the answer.
Right. You don't owe anymore.
I don't
You don't
owe
know
any
it.
explanation about this.
Right.
There was a very small group of people that I get into the granular with because I know they're my safe folks to get into the granular with. But otherwise, it's moving or whatever the status happens to be. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are so
You should call it the phrase of the day.
the phrase of the right, like, or how to get people to shut the fuck up. No. But yeah, so that's my advice for women in general, particularly through the lens of now being in my 50s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
Judi,
I
you
love
mentioned,
the power.
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead,
Debbie.
Gina. No, I was just saying, Judi, she's just example. She just is such a powerful in her power as a woman in her 50s, and I love how women in this age group are starting to really step into their power. And what a great
Yeah.
example she is to that.
Yeah, because I'm 55 and I'm like 60 is kissing my ass, so I better get it together.
Girl,
Get
I
it
know.
together.
I turned 50. Yes, I hear you. Get it together, right?
Just tell people you're 10 years older than you really are.
So they'd be shocked. You
Oh
look
my
great.
God, 65 years old. Oh my God, I know, great, huh? But no,
And
age
think
is,
of how good you feel about yourself then.
I think I'm
Yeah.
65 years old. Yeah, but also, so I'm sure you guys have listened to Julia Louis-Dreyfus's podcast, Wiser Than Me.
Yeah,
So,
she's wonderful.
so every episode, she asks the subject, are they comfortable sharing their real age? So most recently, it might have been last week, or it was 2 weeks ago. It was 2 weeks ago. It was Nina Totenberg, the NPR legal correspondent who's been covering the Supreme Court for like close to probably 50 years, actually. And she asked you, are you comfortable sharing your real age? And she said, no, age doesn't matter. And at the end of the podcast, if you really want to know my age, I'm sure you can Google it. Right. That's the thing. Any of
Yeah.
these guests, you could Google their age in 10 seconds, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like age is irrelevant to me. And
Right.
it's like I have the sense of humor of a 12-year-old boy, and I'm someone who's gonna be, gonna be able to take money out of my IRA in a couple of years. Like, but like I'm both and, right?
Yeah.
And then there's parts of me there. So like I could be so immature, like mostly humor, also sometimes, spiritually wise. But like I'm also kind of an old soul. So like what is it? Chronologically, I'm 55. But what's the age? Like I thought that was it's just an interesting thing to think about.
And it's awesome that you say that too, Judi, because that is like a huge piece of what we're doing here is, with this podcast and even with our own lives as well, so what that I'm 50, I'm running a half marathon. So what that I'm over 50, I'm going to become a flight attendant. It's,
Right?
it,
Exactly.
we're going to do what we've always wanted to do. We're going to flourish and we're going to soar.
When I turned 50, I left corporate and became a copywriter. That was the year I said, I'm done working for other people. I had spent many years working in the financial sector. And then, I was a consultant for many years. And then I was a paralegal when my kids were small. I went back to corporate. So I kind of been all over the map. And then I always joke, I spent 2 years at Bank of New York, Mellon, which was 5 years too long. And right before I turned 50, I was like, I'm done. I'm
Yeah.
not cut out for this. I've never been cut out for corporate. I have to get out of.
Mm,
I said I'm gonna find a way to become and work as a writer, which is always what
yeah.
I'd always managed to work writing into my work and
Hmm.
no matter what job I held. But that was like, I'm like, just because I'm 50 doesn't mean I'm dead.
Right.
Right.
Excellent.
I think that's, but I've heard people
Mhm.
doing this when they're 60, when they're 70. What was it like?
Yeah.
Moses was like 90 or something.
Grandma Moses. Yes, Grandma Moses was like, I love that example. I love the story of Grandma Moses, who was like in her like freaking 70s or 80s and became a famous painter.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So like, what's to say that in 10 years
Yeah.
I'm painting something, right?
Right. Yes.
Like most of my paintings at paint night, which is really just all about wine, but I wine really well. Um, but like,
I
what's
paint
to
really well with
say?
wine. Yeah.
What's to say that like
Yeah.
this what could be from 10 years from now? Like,
Yeah.
but for me, I've always been associated with the written word. Like I was an
Yeah.
early reader. I wrote all the time. Like I just think to me it's just
Yeah.
sense. But that's not to say that I couldn't decide to do something else. And look at the
No, that's true.
but look at you guys. Like you decided that
Yeah.
okay, like you guys have other jobs and you decided you're gonna do this. Like
Yeah.
who's to say you can't do it? Right? No one tells men, oh, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Right? So
That's right.
Right.
Yep.
why are we gonna put ourselves in a box?
Yeah. No,
Right.
for sure.
No more boxes for us.
Or the way they unless it's boxed wine. But anyway, but
Word.
when I encounter some women, being a flight attendant, I fly with a lot of women, men. I mean, all different ages and whatnot. But it's so funny when I do talk to somebody and we start talking about like, what do you want to do? And I start getting on my little soapbox, and then I says, well, I go, well, how old are you? Like maybe a woman will tell me like, well, I really, really want to do this on the side, or I want to do this. I'm like,
Mhm.
she goes, but I'm old. I'm too old. I go, well, how old are you? Oh, I'm 38. And I'm like,
What?
when when you get when you get younger people, women especially get in their head, and I hear it from women. I don't hear it from the men that say I'm too old.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Don't. I really don't
So
understand.
ladies, you're not too old.
You're
All the
not,
ladies
No,
listening,
you're not too
do
old.
it. Do
No
your
one has
thing.
ever, no one has ever told a man you're too old to do X,
Mhm.
right?
Right?
I just don't
So important to live your dreams. It's so
no.
important to do
think
what
that
makes you happy in life, what
Mm-hmm.
brings you joy. Mm-hmm.
no,
Yep.
you do. Yeah, because here's the thing, you don't want to sit on your deathbed and say, I wish I had done X, Y, Z. I wish I had,
Right.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
like,
I
you know,
read statistics about that, and people do,
um,
they have those regrets.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think um I'm kind of like unnaturally obsessed with the topic of death and death doulas and all that kind of stuff. But so I've
Mm,
been seeking out information about that.
Yeah.
Um, but there's something, it's like something like 75% of people on their deathbed are saying, I wish I had spent less time at work and more time with my family. Like it's always
mm,
like in that, like that regret of
yeah.
Mhm.
where people spent their time. And
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
they like they spent it in the wrong direction. I think that's really what's important to
Mm,
glean from that type of data,
yeah.
that people
Yeah.
that spending more time on one thing and not on another,
Mhm.
and more on what is an external locus of control versus an internal locus of control, or
Yeah.
like versus work.
Yeah.
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 Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Judy, if there's anybody out there listening and wants to learn more about what you do, or if they'd like to kind of talk to you about your services, if they're interested in writing and doing all the things like that, what's the best way that they can reach you?
Sure, thank you. So the best way to reach me is through my website, and that is Judy with an I, 411. And I write, so I like to say I'm a writer for the overlooked and misunderstood. And that comes in two flavors, writing for you and writing with you. I do websites, newsletters, blogs, and email campaigns for business owners and technical topics or complex offerings. And then on the other side of the house is what I call copy coaching for people who do a DIY marketing, solopreneurs who are really tied to the writing process in their own work and need like a strategic eye. But I also do book and writing coaching individually and groups. So those
Yeah.
are all of that can be found at judy411.com, where we have all the 411 for writing that you didn't know you needed.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds great. And for
Excellent.
those who are listening, we'll pop those links into the post when we get this in running, and or I don't even know what I'm saying. When we post the video, I mean it's posting right now, but we add it. We add it to it.
When we add it to like when we do our YouTube and we post it to our
Yes.
Spotify, then we make sure that we get your links up on there.
All the links in there.
Yes, and then actually, I think now when we do these, I think there was a couple of responses like on the live too, like Carolyn had actually jumped in. So she just said hi, ladies, and all that. But I'm glad that they're joining us and then watching and getting great information and getting to meet wonderful women like Judy who are joining us. So we greatly appreciate you. Our audience is growing, and we're so grateful to have somebody like you on, Judy. Thank you.
This is so much fun. So much fun.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Judy. We appreciate
Yeah.
you being here, and me, I love you so much. So thank you so much.
Same. Yeah. And there's not many people I'm willing to stay up until 8 o'clock on a Friday night for.
She's done this twice for me. And really quick, folks, grab a copy of Judy's book. I'm not even kidding. This is hilarious. The stories in here
And you could
are great.
You could also get the
They're
book
great
on the website.
Yeah, and
if you order through the website, I sign your book for you.
There you go.
Oh,
There you
that's
go.
awesome. Good to know.
And
Excellent.
it's an easy read. It's short stories. So if you can't get into a big novel because you're too busy, this is a perfect book for you. So yes, order the book and give her reviews on it too. Please, please, please. All of us authors depend on that. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Judy, for your time.
Awesome.
Go get comfortable and go to bed.
We're off a clock pretty soon.
Thank you so much.
Hey, gals.
Bye-bye.